Commentators have traced the life of Urraca, who was born around 1080 or 1081, most likely in the illustrious royal city of León. While some historians have suggested that Sahagn may also have been her birthplace, her entry into the world positioned her at the epicenter of political and dynastic ambitions, largely due to the stature and influence of her parents. She was the offspring of King Alfonso VI of León and Castile, one of the most formidable and ambitious monarchs of medieval Iberia, and his second wife, Constance of Burgundy, a noblewoman deeply connected to prominent Burgundian and Cluniac circles. This noble heritage endowed Urraca with not only considerable prestige, but also an intricate web of international alliances, making her a valuable political asset right from her earliest days. From a tender age, Urraca was steeped in an environment rife with political intrigue, dynastic maneuvering, and military challenges. The Iberian Peninsula during her formative years was a theater of complexities, with a multiplicity of Christian kingdoms and territories ruled by Muslims, where power dynamics were frequently contested through warfare, strategically arranged marriages, and diplomatic negotiations. In this turbulent landscape, her father, King Alfonso, relentlessly pursued ambitious policies aimed at unifying his realms and expanding their territories to the south, often exacerbated by military conflicts such as the dramatic capture of Toledo in 1085. These various military and political upheavals served as the backdrop to Urraca's childhood, profoundly influencing her perspectives on the responsibilities of monarchy and governance. As a royal daughter, Urraca's childhood was further complicated by the expectations placed upon her. Initially perceived merely as a diplomatic pawn in the context of marital alliances, the absence of a legitimate male heir led her to be groomed not only for an arranged dynastic marriage but also for governance itself, a rarity for princesses of her era. Around 1090, at approximately 10 years of age, she was strategically married to Raymond of Burgundy, a nobleman from one of medieval Europe's most powerful dynasties, renowned for its cultural and political influence. Although some historical documents report their marriage as occurring as early as 1088, when Urraca was merely 8 and Raymond approximately 18, marriages involving very young brides at the time were typically not consummated until they were older. Thus, Urraca likely spent her youth engaged in education rather than fulfilling the conjugal role typically expected of wives. Raymond's lineage was significantly intertwined with the Burgundian and Cluniac networks, known for their political power, ecclesiastical reform efforts, and expansive diplomatic ties. This marriage, orchestrated by Urraca's father, was intended to fortify León and Castile's connections with broader European dynamics, particularly as part of Alfonso's strategy in relation to the Muslim territories in the Iberian Peninsula. Aligning his family with Burgundian nobility expanded his diplomatic influence and secured both military and political support. Initially, Urraca's role, when she came of age, was conventional for a medieval royal bride, solidifying alliances and producing heirs. However, her marriage to Raymond soon proved to be more consequential than anticipated. The couple was granted control over the northwestern territory of Galicia, a region characterized by its unique complexities, restless nobility, and significant strategic value due to its role as both a maritime region and a pilgrimage destination. This shared governance marked the beginning of Urraca's involvement in genuine political responsibility. Under their rule, Galicia became a vital administrative training ground, offering her first-hand experience in managing noble rivalries, dispensing justice, collecting revenue, and navigating the intricate world of feudal politics. Throughout these formative years, Urraca demonstrated an increasing aptitude for rulership, gradually being recognized in official documents and charters as possessing authority equal to that of her husband. However, in around 1093, her position as heir was radically altered when her father fathered a male child with one of his concubines, a Moorish princess named Zita. This child, Sancho Alfonso, while illegitimate, presented a potential claim that the nobility might favor over a legitimate daughter as ruler. Although the clergy might have been less inclined to accept an illegitimate heir, Sancho's birth nevertheless complicated Urraca's prospects. By December 1102, Sancho was publicly acknowledged as his father's son and was officially recognized as the heir to the crowns of Castile and León in May 1107. Alfonso appears to have hedged his bets, hoping for a legitimate male heir from his second wife, who unfortunately never bore him a son. The situation for Urraca and Raymond worsened around 1094 when her father granted the county of Portugal, which would later contribute to the northern part of modern Portugal, to his illegitimate daughter Teresa and her husband Henry of Burgundy. While historical documentation does not reveal Urraca's feelings regarding these developments, her determined efforts to secure her throne for herself and her son, as well as her later antagonism towards Teresa, indicate her deep emotional investment in the matter. During this turbulent period, Urraca gave birth to at least two known children. A daughter, Sancha, born sometime between 1092 and 1105. And her son, Alfonso, born in 1105, who would later ascend the throne as Alfonso III, becoming one of León and Castile's most significant. The birth of Alfonso elevated Urraca's dynastic importance, establishing her as the mother of a future heir and enhancing her influence and prestige within the kingdom. Yet it also intensified internal tensions, with various noble factions and relatives eyeing the ever-precarious question of succession, a dynamic that would significantly influence her later life and reign. Urraca's motherhood thus carried complex implications. It both secured her political relevance and heightened her vulnerability to competing factions and intrigues. The untimely death of Raymond in 1107 marked a crucial turning point in Urraca's life. Suddenly widowed, she found herself in a precarious position, bereft of the political and military support that had previously been assured by her husband's Burgundian connections. Her authority now rested solely on her own claims and on the infant legitimacy of her young heir, rendering her vulnerable to rival claimants and ambitious nobles. Rather than retreating to the passive role commonly assigned to medieval noble widows, Urraca swiftly stepped into the realm of active governance, taking decisive stances in charters, legal decisions, and diplomatic negotiations. Her ability to navigate complex political landscapes and consolidate her position amidst uncertainty reflected a sharpened political acumen refined through her earlier experiences in co-rule. In the immediate aftermath of Raymond's death, she began to position herself as the autonomous ruler of Galicia. This assertion of independence, though contentious, highlighted Urraca's burgeoning confidence and capability. Chroniclers later emphasized her ambition and assertiveness during this period, traits that elicited both admiration and critique from contemporaries unaccustomed to women wielding direct authority. Between 1090 and 1107, Urraca evolved from a child bride with primarily dynastic functions into a politically skilled ruler adept in governance. Her experiences in Galicia laid essential groundwork for her later role as Queen Regnant, shaping her political identity, honing her skills in administration and diplomacy, and forging an independent reputation distinct from her father's legacy. However, the presence of Sancho Alfonso as the designated heir dramatically complicated Urraca's political maneuvers. Although the legitimacy of Sancho and the particulars of his status remained somewhat ambiguous due to his mother's Muslim heritage and uncertain marital standing with Alfonso, his birth nevertheless restricted Urraca's political maneuverability as various noble factions began to shift their support toward the young male heir. This reflected the deep-seated discomfort and resistance to female rulership prevalent in medieval Iberia. Sancho's rise and recognition as heir by many influential factions among the León and Castilian nobility underscore the resilient biases and patriarchal expectations within the cultural landscape of the time. In spite of the Church's opposition to recognizing illegitimate heirs even when they were male, the dynastic landscape shifted dramatically on May 29, 1108, when Sancho Alfonso was killed at the Battle of Ucals while battling against the Almoravid armies from North Africa. His premature death at a tender age fundamentally altered the dynamics of the kingdom. Suddenly, Urraca was thrust back into prominence as her father's sole surviving legitimate heir. This critical juncture positioned her on the cusp of becoming the first unequivocal female sovereign to rule a significant European kingdom in her own right. Recognizing he had limited options, Alfonso publicly declared Urraca as his rightful heir shortly before his death in 1109. Though initially met with skepticism by the male-dominated nobility, her legitimacy began to gain recognition as a sense of stability and continuity emerged as paramount amidst escalating external threats. Even if the ruler was a woman, she was nonetheless a legitimate princess. When Alfonso VI passed away on July 1, 1109, Urraca's ascension as queen was immediately fraught with skepticism and animosity. Despite her legitimacy never being seriously questioned, her coronation marked a historic milestone representing the first instance in medieval European history where a woman directly inherited and ruled a significant territory without the oversight of a husband or male guardian. However, the initial phase of her reign was marked by intense internal conflicts, factional intrigues, and an ongoing uncertainty regarding the long-term viability of female rule. Nobles, clerics, and regional elites quickly sought to test Urraca's authority, with some openly questioning her capacity to govern effectively. In the year following Sancho's death, King Alfonso, aged and acutely aware of his realm's vulnerabilities, took proactive steps to secure Urraca's succession. He publicly acknowledged her as the future Queen Regnant. Nevertheless, tensions persisted among powerful noble factions concerned about Urraca's ability to control and defend the kingdom. It is plausible that Alfonso had plans to assist his daughter in this regard. Some sources suggest he sought to arrange Urraca's marriage to his rival, King Alfonso I of Aragon and Navarre, known as the Battler. While it may seem natural for a king to want to ensure his daughter's safety through a capable husband, the choice of his rival was unconventional. Other sources indicate that it was indeed the León nobility, following the king's death, that pressured Urraca to marry Alfonso I, drawn to his military prowess. Although this did not seem an ideal match given that the nobles were primarily concerned with the defense against all more avid aggression, the political landscape dictated this course of action. Bernard of Cedric, the Archbishop of Toledo, openly opposed the marriage on the grounds that Urraca and Alfonso were cousins, but the duality of historical sources suggests that both perspectives might have validity. It is conceivable that Alfonso VI considered Alfonso I among several potential candidates for Urraca prior to his death, while nobles, anxious after his passing, championed him due to his distinguished reputation as a military leader committed to the Christian Reconquista. Though the marriage was strategically conceived to consolidate Christian Iberia, it rapidly revealed significant political and personal discord. Hasty nuptials took place in the castle of Monzon in either October or November of 1109, with the aim of fostering an unprecedented Spanish superstate. Shortly after their union, Urraca presented her husband with a document requesting mutual respect as a good spouse, stipulating that their marriage not be annulled due to their cousinship. The document also proclaimed that should the couple die without issue, her son from her first marriage would inherit León. It soon became apparent that stark political and personal differences existed between Urraca and Alfonso. Having already established a distinct sense of her political identity and independence through her autonomous governance in Galicia, Urraca clashed with Alfonso, who was renowned not only for his military aptitude but also for his domineering demeanor and rigid approach to leadership. Within months of the marriage, tensions escalated as Alfonso sought to impose Aragonese officials and military control directly upon León and Castile. Local nobles and regional leaders resisted these measures bitterly, perceiving Alfonso's heavy-handed governance as oppressive foreign domination rather than a supportive alliance. As a result, the kingdom fractured into hostile factions. One faction remained loyal to Urraca, passionately committed to preserving León and Castilian autonomy. Another faction supported Alfonso, viewing his military capabilities as essential against the Almoravid threat and firmly believing in male superiority in governance. A third, increasingly influential faction coalesced around Urraca's son, Alfonso Ramunes, although he was still a young child at this stage. Supporters of the infant heir vehemently advocated for his right to rule Galicia and succeed his mother, using this as a pretext to rebel. As conflicts escalated and the animosity between Urraca and Alfonso became glaringly public, chroniclers recorded numerous incidents of intense discord, arguments, and even physical abuse inflicted upon Urraca by Alfonso, actions deemed scandalous by the standards of royal marriages in that era. These accounts circulated widely, tarnishing Alfonso's reputation and strengthening Urraca's support among certain noble factions and ecclesiastical leaders sympathetic to her cause. The kingdom, which was intended to be strengthened by the marriage, instead found itself embroiled in debilitating civil strife. Indications of Urraca's intentions to leave her husband can be traced back to a letter of grant she issued to the Abbey of Santo Domingo de Silos on June 13, 1110. In this letter, she proclaimed herself Queen of all Spain and daughter of Emperor Alfonso, openly expressing her desire to be freed from her marriage. Historical accounts indicate that Urraca chose to separate from Alfonso following discussions with her advisors, while Alfonso claimed he repudiated her due to her alleged infidelity. Both narratives could be true, as Urraca had a long-standing relationship with a noble named Berengar, which added further complexity to her already turbulent life.